Hello! Today I wanted to build a Gundam. Now, when I first moved to Japan, I was quite interested in the Gundam hobby, and I was building Gundam back in the UK. So one of the first things I did when I found a little nerd shop over here, I went and bought a Gundam. But I never finished building it. Here he is. He's got no shoulder pads and no head. If you don't know what Gundam is, it's one of these bad boys. Basically a plastic figurine that you build yourself. But in the end, I never had the patience to finish building it, so I just kind of got bored as I was building it. It was taking a little too long. But what I thought I'd do today was try and introduce people to the Gundam hobby if they aren't aware of it. So today we are going to build a Gundam. This is a kit I bought from a Hobby Off. Hobby Off is a store in Japan that is basically a second-hand store for hobby goods, nerd goods, things like Gundams, anime figurines, board games, that kind of thing. They also have things like instruments, etc. I bought this kit and you can see it's a little discolored in the corners, which means it's probably been sat on a window for slightly too long. Why? I have no idea. Over here you can see this is a sticker you get if you don't get a bag. They tend to put stickers on products in Japan to prove that you've bought them. And then here is the price. It was 3,300 yen, which in pounds is about 17 pounds, which isn't bad at all. This is a real grade kit, which means it's size 1/144th, and it is a higher detail model than a standard grade, a high grade kit. We've still got this plastic film on the outside. In terms of tools to build a Gundam, you're going to need maybe two things, but mostly these. These are snips or plastic cutters or whatever you want to call them, and these are going to be incredibly useful for cutting our Gundam pieces from their plastic. The other thing you might want is a knife. I've got one of these, but most people use these small X-Acto knives. Basically, sometimes Gundam kits are injection molded, so that means that plastic is injected into a mold, and so sometimes a mold is made of two pieces. It will get into the seam of these two pieces, which means that you will end up with something called mold lines, and this is just to scratch those away if you are bothered by such things. I'm going to use it to open my box. I've never seen the Gundam anime, and I'm well aware that Gundam has lots of different anime. This one appears to be from Gundam Seed, as it says here, and it's called the Gundam Astre Red Frame. Low Gueles Use Mobile Suit MBFPO2. I don't care about any of that. I just think it looks cool, but how do I know if it looks cool if I'm only looking at the front cover? So typically I like to turn it on its side. Here you can see parts of the model that are important. This is a model that has an inner skeletal frame that you build, which means that the old Gundam models were kind of built entirely out of the plastic themselves, whereas this one has an inner skeleton, which then forms into the model. And I can see here the model on the side of the package. On this side, you can see different positions that the Gundam model has been placed into. So let's crack this bad boy open. Typically, I turn it upside down, take my knife, and slice along here. Now if we open the box, we can see what's inside. And it's a series of, like I said, injection molded pieces of plastic. These pieces of plastic are called sprues. Let's just put all these to the side for now. The next thing in the box is going to be our instructions, which are going to be incredibly useful for building the Gundam itself. This looks like an advertisement for a certain store, Hobby Japan. And finally, our instruction booklet. I bought this kit in Japan, but the instructions are all pretty clear visually through diagrams. Yes, there are some Japanese sections, but once you know how to build a Gundam, you more or less get used to what each part means. Here you can see sometimes they have extra pieces on the side. You have to chop those out. Just be careful when chopping them from the sprue. You also get in this kit stickers which can be put on after. I've never been very good at applying stickers, but perhaps on this model we will try. Now, I want to talk about the sprues because they are a masterclass in engineering. Here, you could see an injection molded sprue. It's easy to notice that this sprue is made up of different colors, and you can see these points on the side where the colors join. Different colors of plastic on the same sprue. And you'll also notice that each piece has a lot of room around the edge of the sprue. This kit has, as you can see, a lot of sprues. If we compare that to something like Warhammer, which, ignoring this side because I've built it, you can see that these pieces are much more closely packed together, and there is only one color of sprue. That is because Warhammer is intended to be painted, of course, but Warhammer is typically much more expensive than Gundam, and the equivalent sprues aren't even comparable. Gundam sprues come out on top pretty much every time. Each sprue has a different letter on it, so this sprue is A. And I like to organize my sprues on my table to make it easier to build. Typically, I will put them in different places. It doesn't really matter where I put them. Staying organized is going to be important to your mental well-being while building a Gundam. So typically, I like to keep my sprues nice and organized, easy to access. So I'm going to put A over here, and I'm going to look at the rest of these sprues and figure out where they can go. I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate the B sprue from this kit as well. This sprue has movable parts. It is injection molded into movable pieces, which how they do that is likely magic. You can actually see the points on this kit where the injections were made along here. These sort of raised edges. This is what is going to form the central skeleton frame that we saw earlier on the side of the box. I've never attempted to build a Gundam like this before, where I'm sat behind a camera, and I suspect I'm going to face some teething difficulties, but we shall see. I'm going to have the instructions off screen, and we're just going to see how we get along. As is pretty typical with these kits, we're going to start with the right leg. So I need to go and look at B, and I need to find B2. The numbers are in here, so you want to be careful when cutting, but I can tell that this is the point we want to cut at, where it meets the plastic. Important to chop every piece down as thin as it will go. I don't know if this camera will pick it up, but let's see. You might be able to see a few mold lines along the edges, but I'm not really that fussed about this. You can actually already see the shape of a leg here. One of the first things we need to do is we need to rotate this piece 90 degrees inside to form the hip. And then we just want to make sure that all these pieces can move a little bit. So as you can see, we've got movement there. The plastic at the bottom, the ankle, that should be able to move sideways. That's got a little ball inside. So it's a ball joint. And we have got movement. This is just one of those instances where I will just try to shave a little bit of that sprue off there that I've left on. So on the back of the foot, there we go, we've got a nice click on that. And then D19 goes down into the back of the foot like this, I believe. There we go. No click on that one, but it is nice and secure. This goes into here. And then this goes into this part of the foot. And now we've got a movable foot piece. Onto here. And then we've got this one which goes into here. Perfect. Already you can see impeccable balance and these small shavings of plastic which are starting to accumulate on my desk. Go this way around on the model. There's another piece that should join here, I think. Like this. Aha! And then similarly, this one will clip on. Now what you can kind of see here as the model's taking shape is that underneath was that skeleton, and then these plastic pieces on top are connecting both to the skeleton and then on a point like here to each other, which makes a nice tight connection. So even when we start moving this thing around, it shouldn't be breaking apart and should be staying together, even though we've used absolutely no glue. This piece shows something that's quite important. Sometimes when you chop the plastic, there will be these raised edges. And in the instructions, it will tell you to get rid of those raised edges. I will show you here. We're following this instruction at the moment. And on here, there are these little red triangles. The red triangles mean that we need to cut off these raised edges. You could tell that you're supposed to cut them off because when they are attached to the sprue, that is where the sprue connects. And typically, I like to do this with a knife and just try to shave those pieces right down. And that is the first leg built. As you can see, it's not that big. This is a real grade, so it is 144. So it's not as big as some of the other kits, but the level of detail here is pretty incredible. You can see there are many different pieces. Lots of it can move. The ankle can bend, the toes come up. This ankle piece moves ever so slightly. When you open the knee, you can see it gets this ever so slight crease in here as well. But that is just one leg. Now, I'm not going to film the other leg because that's going to take far too long, and I quite frankly don't have enough space on my SD card. Lieutenant Dan, you got your legs back. They're done. Now, next is the waist unit, according to this, the hip. With this, we need to take this piece and rotate it 90 degrees anti-clockwise. This piece goes on here, apparently. There we go. There we go. Little click. This should now fit perfectly. I'm sure that's perfect. I tend to find that these pieces, which are on the front of the crotch, are a little delicate, to be honest. Hip joint is done. It was pretty simple. It's not asked me to actually put the legs in yet, so I don't know why that is, but you can see here the joint where the legs will end up going, I'm pretty sure. Some of them have hip rotation on the Gundam. This one doesn't look like it does. It might be a slightly earlier model. Oh no. That might happen quite often where the plastic will just fly off and it's so small that you will lose it forever. I mean, this piece of plastic here is much smaller than my fingerprint, so that just flew off. It's important to keep your workspace quite clear for that. And then we can just slot that hand back into the arm. So the right arm is done and we can bend it all the way around like this, which has wonderful range of motion. Okay, I don't think it snaps onto anything. I think you just have to try and keep it in the right rotation, which is fine. And then we push into the arm joint here. There we go. Give it a little wiggle and it's on. Perfect. And then we've got a weird gorilla looking guy, which we can immediately pull the shoulders back. On. Haha! He's starting to take shape. How high can he lift his shoulders? Pretty high. For now. Whee! This is an incredibly uncomfortable way to build a Gundam with the camera in front of you because I just can't sit in a comfortable position. Here's the progress we've made then. The torso now has all these pieces on it. His hips can still move, you can see. He's still got these slightly loose bits here, and he's got this strange thing on his back, which looks like it's going to have something clip into it. Now, just to make you feel like you've almost made it to the end of building your Gundam, in the middle, you can see there's lots of different cool poses, and just remember you're doing it for this. We're on page 9 out of 15, so we are getting quite close, I would say. We do have to build the shoulders next, and then once we've done the shoulders, we can start piecing the whole thing together. After that, I think it is just sort of different units, different pieces, optional units, optional pieces. This does need to have those little pieces on the side. Your booklet should kind of warn you that you need those pieces. In fact, I'll show you. So here we've got a piece, and you see it's got these little side pieces. Well, how do we know it needs that? In the booklet, in the instructions, we've got these 2 little dashes. That means that that piece is needed and not to chop it off. Aha! One of his shoulders is completed. I'm going to go build the other one. So we've got the shoulder piece here, and that just clips on over here. There we go. They can rotate as well slightly along there's like a track on the inside, so that they have a lot of movement. Next we've got this piece, and we have to rotate this up and up, and then these pieces go on. There we go. And again. There we go. And then most of it can come together. So if we take our hip unit, let's make sure that this is the front, which it is. We can take our right leg and jam it in there. The plastic's got a little bit of resistance to that. Not sure why. Let's see, maybe it's a little tight. And let's put the other one in as well. There we go. Yeah, that one's a little more willing to go in. This one, not so much. That might just be the kit, which is unfortunate, but nothing is always perfect, and I think that's fine. With the ankles, he can adjust. Oops. Okay, so we can get him stood up, which is good. This piece then goes on top of here. And there is definitely more to go on that. Yeah, you don't want to be too harsh with the plastic. I think that's pretty secure though. Like if I pull on that. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Perfect. And then our body should just be able to push into there. Ease him down. There we go. Splitsman. Headless friends. Oh, this is actually a good sort of demonstration that even though they're the same scale, they're not actually the same size. You can see the one on the right is a fair bit taller than the one on the left. I'm not sure why. But the one on the right is also a bit more complicated in that it has far more moving parts, including this sort of weird knee joint. I'm pretty sure this moves, doesn't it? No? Oh, I'm imagining things. This comes out and there's a sword in there, and we're not talking about that one. But that is why I haven't finished it. It was just a bit too complicated. I'll also say since I last recorded, the temperature has massively spiked. And I have had a lot of sushi and now a lot of ice cream. If you know anything about me, ice cream is not a good thing for me to eat. So why did I have it? Well, it's hot. And ice cream is cold. And delicious. But I've eaten a lot of it. Ah. I will say this about the headpieces. They are incredibly small, and I do find them often to be the most finicky parts. They are tiny little pieces of plastic, and they tend to have this spike on their head that we'll get to. I do find this interesting where this step for stickers, you can see here, this piece is really tiny, but it wants you to put some pieces on the eyes here. The stickers are minuscule. I just need to check the orientation, so it is this way around. So we've got some stickers here, and we've got two options. We can either put 64 and then 8 on top of each other, or we could just go in the middle, which seems to have the green and the black in one sticker. My level of control is nowhere near high enough to get 64 and 8 on this piece, I don't think. So I think we'll just do it this way around. There we go. It's nearly impossible to do, but it's on there, and it's going to have to do because I don't have the patience to make it perfect. There was an ever so slight small piece of plastic that was left on, so I just used the knife to chop that off. And then we got this little white mouthpiece. Should just slot into here. And look, all that work on the eyes, you can barely see it. Excellent stuff. Like this. Ah, he's a cyclist. I have often found that these are the least secure pieces on the entire model. So if I was tempted to use glue for any part of a Gundam, it would probably be for this. I just tend to knock them out, but this one, you know, it's attached by such a tiny little point on the front of the head. But maybe I'm just inept. So if we bring our model back over here, that little ball joint in there, there we go. And now his head solidly attached, and it has rotational capabilities. We've constructed his backpack unit, which can now go onto his back here, and that's where that clip comes in from earlier. There we go. So that actually can move a little bit, right? It's got a little bit of movement, but not too much. And actually grabbing those from his back might be quite difficult for the Gundam. He's reaching. He's reaching. Oh no. Oh, he's almost there. There we go. So he can actually grab his own swords. Oh no. Oh, his legs have come off. So I've taken the time to build pretty much all the customizable parts of the model. We've got a hand with a laser sword on the left and a hand with a laser sword on the right. These have the same ball joints on them that are on the model, so you could simply replace them to your heart's content. These are supposed to represent the blades in the back, so it's recommended that if you put these on the figure, you should remove these for authenticity. Next, we've got these very interesting customizable hands. They have one single digit that's fully movable on its own, 3 that are stuck together, and a thumb. They rotate in the middle. Again, how they've printed this, I have no idea, because this came off the sprue with that on. Next is the shield. The shield itself has this point here to clip into the back of the arm. You use this alongside the hand, which can wrap around this handle. Next is the gun. Now the gun here is attached with the finger hand, which means that it can clip in on its own. However, it also can clip onto the back of the figure with this into this point on the back. Finally, we have this sword, which is fully sheathed, which if I pull the sheath, should just come out. The sheath goes on the side of the leg, and the sword can go in the left hand. We're also provided an alternative configuration with an extra piece under his arm here on his waist, where the samurai sheath can go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick my favorite configuration of all these pieces. So I think this is going to be my preferred orientation here. He's got the sword, the shield sheath down here, and the gun is attached to the back. One of the cool details about the gun is that there's this very tiny green piece in here which just catches the light sometimes for his viewfinder as well. I just think I prefer, you get the laser swords in pretty much every set, and I think I prefer the samurai sword here. Oh, I have popped it out of his wrist. Posability is pretty good, though I'm just a bit conscious of that weak hip joint. I did try and fix it earlier, but I'm not entirely certain that I got anything close to being what we needed. The gun's a little loose on the back. There we go. I've just gently touched it and it's come off, which is a bit concerning as well. But once it's placed somewhere, I shouldn't really have to mess with it too much. Now, I could just leave him like this, but I have got a small plastic kit, which will hopefully mean that I can stand him up and make it look like he's flying. So there he is, floating in the middle of the air. This stand, it actually has a screw and a nut in it, which is the first time I've seen that. And you can take lots of different angles with it from the looks of things. But I think this is good. I'm going to keep the rest of the pieces off to the side, although I might put the little man, down at the base. There. The actual sticker instructions are all on the back. I'm not going to do that in this video. I don't know if I'm even going to do that in my own spare time. Will it look better? Absolutely, but I think I'm quite happy with it as it is for now. So that's the video. I would play with it, but the waste is giving me some cause for concern. So maybe I'll buy some more and get more of these stands. These are quite fun, I think. And that's Gundam.